In our previous video, we looked at using the .lower, .upper to modify a string to be all uppercase or lowercase. We saw something very similar to this in our previous example, except notice that our, again, input variable that we've gotten, we set it to be lower. That way, any testing we go further on. For example, if we had a whole menu of options, we only have to set it one time. But we do want to look at another potential issue we might run into. In order to see this, we're going to run this application and give it an error that you might find because a user inputted something incorrectly. So here we ask if we're going to continue, and because I typed quickly, I'm going to accidentally put a space at the end. Now when I hit the enter key, it says it's time to exit, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted to continue, but because of just maybe how I hit something on the keyboard, it exited me out of the application. This is not necessarily what we're looking for, so we want to find a way to be able to fix this. Well, Python gives us a couple different ways, and they all revolve around the ability to strip out white spaces from our string. We can remove these white spaces either from the left-hand side of our string, the right-hand side of our string, or from the whole string. And it's real easy to do so. I'm going to come up here to my blank line and just add a new value. I would say again equals again dot, and I can say lstrip, which will remove it from my left-hand side, rstrip, which is going to move it from my right-hand side, or I can just specify to strip. And strip is going to strip off or remove my white space. With just strip compared to lstrip and right strip, it's going to remove it from both sides. It is not going to remove it from the center. We'll see that in just a second. So if we go and run this again and create the same error that we did before, putting a space afterwards, you'll notice that it now removed that space and let me only see my character. If I put a space and then a Y, it allows me to run this again. So here's an example we want to look at real quick where we have a sentence and we just want to make sure it's not going to remove the spaces in between my words. So this is just going to be a verification of this logic. So we're going to run this application real quick. I'll put some spaces before. It's optional just to see this test though. Notice I took out the spaces that preceded my string. It also took out the ones that might have been at the end or succeeded the string. But the spaces inside my string are left alone. So the strip command works really good at removing those leading and trailing spaces, but lets the spaces in between your string so you can still see your words work just fine. So here we're going to be looking for a string. We want to see if this string is going to exist within another string. And this could be as simple as a single character, or it could be as complex as a full word in this case. So I'm going to ask for a person's full name, then I'm going to see if William is in that name. We're going to come here to run this. Please enter your full name. And we're going to give it just a nice little made-up name. And what we do is it found William, so it says, can we just call you Billy? And then it tells us where the item was found inside of our string. So you'll notice if we come back here to our source code, that if we want to make sure that it's found, we look for something that is not equal to -1. Or we could look for something that's greater than or equal to 0. So what find does is it returns the index of our substring that's found. That's whether it's a single character or multiple characters. Now find works really well for finding if something is just inside of a string. But what happens if I want to know if it begins with a string or if it ends with a certain substring? Well, let's take a look at that. Here we start off very similarly. Please start with your full name. And then with our full name, we have our find. But if I want to say if it starts with something, I have a starts with method. And that's going to return a true false value. I don't need to know the index. I know it's the index is 0 because it starts with. Likewise, I have it ends with, and I can search for something like junior or the third. And what I'm looking for is that the end of my string. So this is a nice way to kind of run this test. So if we run this test real quick and say Mr. James William Smith Jr., it comes up, it found the value just as it did before. It says, can we call you Billy? And then it says, keep up tradition, I see, because we have the junior. If I run this again, say, Dr. William Smith, once again, it finds William, says, can we just call you Billy? And it says, well, aren't you fancy, doctor? Because it found that it started with a string. If I put doctor somewhere in the middle, it's not going to find it. Because it's not starting with, let's just see this as an example. Dr. Smith. Notice it didn't print out anything. William wasn't in there, so it didn't find that. It doesn't end with junior or the third, so it doesn't print for that. And doctor, even though it exists, because it doesn't start with, it's not going to display the result. So starts with and ends with works really well if I'm looking for when a string starts or ends with. Find is useful for finding something that's anywhere inside my string. And that's the slight difference whenever I'm working with finding information within my strings.